What's happening, guys? We are back for episode 3 of Off the Platform. We're here today with Josh Cannon. For those that may not know, Josh Cannon is the current UK record holder for bench press with 275 kilo bench. And we're going to get into Josh's lifting history, everything about Josh, and deep dive some of maybe the darker side of powerlifting. So let's get into it. Josh,
hello, mate.
How you doing? Everything all good, buddy?
Good as it can be. As good as it can be,
Yeah.
You have good days, you have bad days, but, still here.
Good. So let's dive into your lifting history. How did you get into strength sports, and then talk me into how you got into powerlifting in general?
Well, not meaning to be cliche or anything, but going right back, like, if you want to talk about how I first started wanting to train,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to call it pathetic or what, but I was bullied pretty bad as a kid. And I just thought, you know what? And I was a skinny thing, and I thought, I wonder if I just made myself really big, that I could, it would help, stop that. And it's, you look back and you think, God, what a ridiculous thing to say. What a ridiculous mindset to have. But as a 16-year-old kid, you think maybe that's the only thing I've got going for me. And as soon as I was old enough, I joined a gym with my mum. And my mum was trained. She was going to be a PT in the army. So she knew, she could help me out. And she got me into training. And in the end, I just became absolutely obsessed with it. Like, I'd go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week if I could, and I'd max out every single session on everything I could. I was a kid, and you can do things like that as a kid. I was 16, 17. I seemed to put weight on quite easily. I was just eating anything and everything I could, and just completely focusing on it. Probably more than I should, to be fair, because I probably missed out on a fair few things that, other people of my age were doing. But I thought, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get my sleep. I'm going to eat. I made sure I was eating all my food, and I was going to the gym. And I didn't even know powerlifting existed. I had no idea it existed. And then after a while, I stopped. I couldn't tell you why I stopped. I think I just missed summer days riding my bike and things like that, and quite a hefty thing at that point. And shortly after, I joined the Royal Navy as a clearance diver, and I still trained in the Navy, did some weights and stuff. And when I left the Navy, I went back into it. I went back into lifting, and again, I just started training, and I think I was benching on the Smith machine or something like that. And I remember very, very clearly doing 4 plates a side on the Smith machine, and then someone said, "Oh no, you need to be doing that." I don't think the gym even had a bench, so I changed gym, and they had like 2 posts and a bar, not a proper bench bar or anything. It was just a shitty little gym somewhere, but it doesn't matter what the gym's like. If the atmosphere's there, you can make progress. And I absolutely felt the love that I used to have for lifting again. And again, I still didn't even know powerlifting existed. And before I knew it, I was sort of benching 4 plates, clean, completely clean of everything. And I thought I was entering a bench press competition. I didn't realise it was actually a powerlifting meet, and I was doing bench only. I had no idea. And my first ref was my good friend Dave Beattie, and I remember I didn't know what the commands were. I didn't know all the rules. I literally knew nothing. And it was a 20-second conversation with Dave before I walked out there, and he told me everything I needed to know. I did 1 comp, just the bench press side of it, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
Immediately qualified for the nationals that year, which was it the BPC, Body Power, where it was a much smaller event than it became.
Yeah.
I went there and I couldn't tell you about numbers. I can't remember. Um, I think no, honestly, I think no, I honestly can't remember. It's so long ago. I don't really focus on the numbers too much. But I remember doing that one, and then I did another bench only comp. Um, Help the Heroes charity one in about 2010 or 11. And I kept chasing a 5 plate side bench, kept chasing the mystical 220. And I know when I went to body power, I almost hit the 250, which at the time would have been the record. But again, no coaching, maxing out every day in the gym, trying to get 220 every time I walked in. I had no idea of a peak. I was just lifting like a bro, like a typical gym rat with absolutely no education on what I was doing. Suicide grip, everything. I'm lucky I've still got a face, really. It was so dodgy. It was so dodgy. But I realised that I was I don't I don't like being too self-congratulatory, but I just seemed to find my zen with the bench.
Yeah,
Doesn't
it
mean
just
that I
clicked.
didn't like the rest. I mean, I love squats, I love deadlifts, I totally shit at them, but I love them. I love doing it, but it just seemed to click with benching. I mean,
Yeah,
I trained everything. I trained everything absolutely religiously, but when it came to, um, I'm skipping forward a bit, but anyway, so I had another a break from powerlifting, and I was commercial. I went back to diving. I was a commercial diver for quite a long time. Worked, all around the world, um, did salvage and all fields and stuff. And then I came back into lifting when I decided that I wasn't going to spend all my time away from home. My little one had just been born, living in Northern Ireland, and an 82.5 kilo equip lifter, a guy called Andy Cusick, took me under his wing.
yeah. Andy's a
Um,
good lad.
he was a machine and just a terrific guy, and gave me such a foundation, um, about started telling me about peaks, and between Andy and Dave Jenkinson as well, because we used to talk a lot and train, started getting pointing me in the right directions, and that's when I really sort of hyper focused on it. I think more than anything, I needed something to hyper focus on, because when I was diving, it was a way of life. I was away for 3 months and home for a few weeks and away for 3 months. And it was a way of life. And I needed something to occupy that amount of my mind, I guess. And
Yeah,
that's why I hyper focus to my detriment on powerlifting, and especially the
just
bench press.
obsessed.
Yeah, absolutely. It you know, I completely obsessed with it, and there was nothing else other than that.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was pretty, and it just went from there. And then I got my first record, and I remember the first time I took the all time was in Ireland at the Irish Pro,
Hmm.
and it was I got it, and then I was told that it didn't count. It couldn't be posted on the old Neil side because it was done in Ireland and not in the UK. So I
And
literally,
is that more because it was related to the? Because it has to be linked to a federation, doesn't it? And
yeah,
was it early stages of the federation? Was it early stages of Irish Pro where it wasn't federated, wasn't a
it
federated meet?
it was part of. Do you know what? I can't even remember what it was. A federated meet, but not affiliated with the BPU or the
Right.
what's the world one? It wasn't
The
affiliated with them yet.
GPC or WPC.
WPC, it wasn't affiliated with them, I believe. So I was told that it wasn't allowed, and it
Yeah.
was, oh my god, the crushing blow. I thought I just benched 252.5 kilos. I can't remember who took. I think his name was Tony Cliff. Maybe he had that record for so long, and it was like, honestly, I felt so good. And then to be said, oh no, you're not allowed it. You're not on the top. You haven't, because you've done it in
Yeah.
Ireland. So I went straight to Birmingham a couple of weeks later and done it again at Body Power. Hit the same number at Body Power and took it. And I think taking that record, once you know you've done it, you just go from strength to strength. Something just switches in your brain. You think, right, I'm going more.
It's
I'm
possible.
going more. And all I kept doing is thinking, I want to put this record out of everyone's reach. As arrogant as that sounds, I just wanted to just see how far I could go with it.
Yeah.
And it became an obsession completely.
And how did your training change? So you went from training like a bro, you went from working sort of in a position to actually compete.
Mm.
You then went to a position where you'd got some guidance from Dave Beatty, you'd got Andy Kusick in your corner. How did your training evolve, and where did the focus really transition from actually, shit, I can do this?
It was when my numbers started going up, and I've never really been the kind of person to go, oh, look what I can do, blah, blah, blah. Because at the end of the day, it's just lifting weights, man. It's just lifting weights. No one cares, really, in the real world. No one gives a fuck. And I didn't either. I was just having fun. And it was other people that were coming up to me and going, who the hell are you? Where have you come from? I've never heard of you in
Yeah.
my life. How have you just done this? You've just shown up, done this. And I was thinking, okay, right, there must be something to this. And I just decided to dedicate myself to it. I just thought, well, I'm going to learn. And I watched YouTube video after YouTube video. And my training method, it was something Andy pointed me in the right direction. But and then I took it on and I sort of figured it out for myself. And there didn't seem to be anyone training like me. Everything I did seemed to be wrong, according to all the rule books. But
Normal
it can't.
convention would say
Yeah,
doesn't work.
but it can't have been. It was a weird mixture of bodybuilding, like West Side Conjugate, and the person that I found closest to it, who was readily available, was Matt Wenning. His training methods were really, really, really eerily similar to mine, and I really took a lot from it. Like I think, I'd watch it and he would come up with these ideas. He'd be talking about this and talking about that, and it would click. And then I sort of developed it on from there. But the more the more I concentrated on developing my own style of training, my own program. How do I put it? Like the more I focused on it, the more I enjoyed focusing on it, and the more I dedicated myself to it. It was like
Felt like you got control for
I actually,
yourself.
but I also, because there were quite a lot of people asking me like, what do I do? How do I train? Blah blah blah. And I love helping people, and it comes to a point where I think, hang on a minute, like, why am I helping everybody? Like, why is everyone? To figure it out why I was so different, I actually had to break my own benching down to figure out what I was doing to help other people, because to me it just came very, very naturally.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
deadlift, it was just, I'm a fish out of water,
I remember the conversations around deadlift. It's like you wanted the deadlift so much, and I can remember the conversations that we had around deadlift training and everything else, and it's tough when when you are biologically gifted for bench,
yeah.
you tend to fly in the face of the biological lifters for deadlift. It doesn't seem to work for both,
No,
does
it
it?
just no matter what I did, it just always felt so unnatural. I think my best pull was 325, which, I mean, it's a decent deadlift, but it's not.
Hmm.
It's like it's it's not even decent. It's mediocre when you consider where I was in bench. My deadlift and my squat, which were much the same, are mediocre. But
Hmm.
I made the choice to sacrifice them, especially in prep time, for the extra recovery for bench. I
Yeah.
made the choice that no, I don't need to be doing this to that degree. For 6 weeks out of comp, I wouldn't even go anywhere near my like, half of my body. I would literally train twice a week, a heavy session and a speed session, and that was it, and just take the extra recovery.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did training change? How did you adapt to go from the 252 and a half and how did that journey evolve up to the 275?
It's all a blur, mate. What do you mean evolve? Like
How did you go from 252 and a half at body power to the 275?
I worked on the basis of speed. Honestly, I used to think so. You get a lot of people like I've never taken away anything from these, the RPE system and all those methods, progressive overload, blah blah blah. It just didn't sit well for me. So what I did was I focused on perfecting one rep, and I used to. It was always, most sessions when I was in my prep phase was submaximal, and my mental state was right. I'm not focusing on can I lift this weight. I'm focused on how fast can I move this weight.
Yeah.
How fast can I move this weight? And then when you say, and it is my pet peeve, cameras and tripods in a fucking gym. I swear to God, it is my pet fucking peeve. But as you know, to your frustration, I'm not big on posting videos. I never was. I never.
You're a bit
I
of a
did.
ghost on social media.
Yeah. And on the rare occasion that I did, I remember once I wanted to see my bar speed, and I managed to get near enough the same bar speed from 60 kilos to 240. The difference was negligible, and
Yeah.
then it would slow down from there. And that's what I focused on, was being able to move it fast, um, and that was literally the basis of my training. Was in the off season was just old fashioned sweat and sawdust reps. Reps and bodybuilding stuff. There wasn't a great deal of science behind it. I just think sometimes you can overcomplicate it. And I just trained, just
Just lift
fucking
shit.
trained. Drop sets, old school stuff,
Mm.
supersets, pyramids. And then when it came to prep time, it's like, right, sort everything out, the extra bits outside the gym. And then in the gym, this is how I'm going to do it. And I focused on, even on my compound day, on my max effort day, it was still focused around speed and power. And then I had a
Yeah.
speed day,
Yeah.
and I kept that.
I as a coach, I learned a lot from, and I'm going to be real with you, Josh.
Yeah,
Your methods and your input, coaching you was tough.
yeah,
Um, it is what it is. But I learned a lot from you in that same vein around how you wanted to be programmed and your focus, and it
mm,
was insightful, and it stuck with me. It stuck with me since, and it's great. You can't fault it, and it the methods work. Focusing on the speed of the bar, outrunning bands, you know, those sorts of strategies, they work. I had them in my training when I worked with Neil, from Neil Side Barbell years and years ago.
yeah, I know.
Neil would have me work with bands, and the speed side of things. It works, and there's a lot to be said for it. You don't see it as much now.
No,
You really don't.
no, I think people, to a degree, and I'm not saying they don't work because they quite obviously do, but people focus on. I mean, RPE is a massive one. You know, people really do focus on things like that, or I don't know the names yet. I've never been like sciencey with the different training methods. You know, I couldn't tell you what one is from the other. And but people do focus on a specific training method, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for them. My thing
Yeah.
with powerlifting was everyone says, "Oh, you've got 3 reps." No, you don't. You've got 3 attempts of 1 rep. If you're doing 3 reps of something, especially in comp prep, the first one's unsteady where you're finding your feet. The second one's half decent, and the third one's shit again because you run out of steam. Just as an example, even worse for 5 reps. I mean, outside, yeah, it's great. You're getting some volume in, but I always thought I want to be able to. I train myself to put it bluntly, spunk my load in 1 rep, to be able to explode in 1 rep and exhaust and then recover from that. And the way I did that
Yeah.
was bands and the conjugate things, changing the band tension, changing the bar weight. I didn't mess around too much with the bar, to be honest, because I just thought the bar's the constant, isn't it? What's in your hands is always the constant. I didn't want to change it too
Yeah.
much. As assistance work, I used a football bar and things like that. It was nice. But I think sometimes it can be overcomplicated.
Yeah. And some like I say, sometimes simplicity is key.
Hmm.
You get more from it. Certainly in the early days, and I think what really showed me from your style of training was when you're at that point where you're chasing half a kilo, 2.5 kilo in a
Oh,
year.
frustrating, mate.
It is incredibly frustrating, and a lot of it does come down to the execution of how you handle that bar at them
Hmm.
upper limits, and and like you say, the speed of bar. So with the 275, that fell. You got the 275. You then, I'm gonna call it what it is. There was some controversy around the 275.
Yeah, there was. Um, so a lot of people said there wasn't a long enough of a pause. Dave, and they said obviously because Dave was my friend, he was a centre rest, and they said that he didn't give me enough of a pause. And I actually messaged. Um, am I allowed to say who I messaged?
Yeah,
Yeah, I messaged Tanya George, and I said, look, if it's causing this much crap, just revoke it. Disallow the record, and I'll have another go. If I want a record, I want it to be. I don't want to. I don't want it to be. I want it to be a straight record. I don't want it to be any grey area or. Blah, blah. I mean, there's always going to be an opinion. There's always going to be people that don't want you to have the record. But when there's, it wasn't loads and loads, but it was more than I anticipated with the amount of people complaining about it.
it's got the spotlight on it,
But
hasn't it?
yeah,
And
Tanya's response to me was short, sharp, and it was fuck off. If they don't like it, they can fuck off. There was nothing wrong with it. And I was like, okay, right. So there's that then. Um,
that's a very typical Tanya response, isn't it?
yeah, and she quoted the rule book, and in to be fair to her, it does not say anywhere that there must be a pause. It says
The ball has to stop.
when the bar is motionless on the chest and the press
Yeah,
command shall be given. I always remember that, and the way everyone always says to me, "Oh, you bring the bar down too slow." No, I don't. I bring the bar down so that at any point I can just turn around and push it back up.
yeah,
And that
it's
was the point.
controlled.
If you'd have felt that bar, you could have probably pushed your finger underneath the bar on my chest. I brought it down, kept it under tension so that I could explode at
Yeah,
any point I wanted to. And what I would typically do was push my heels down, push my chest into the bar and go from there.
I call
Um,
it the paper test. Can you lower the bar on your chest without creasing a piece of paper?
yeah. Well, I was fortunate enough to have the likes of Brandon Lilly, who stepped in and was really quite complimentary and kind of shut up a lot of people. I mean,
Yeah,
his name carried a hell of a lot of weight, and still does as far as I'm concerned.
a good guy. Good guy.
Yeah,
We spoke to
fantastic
him many
guy.
times over the years.
Yeah, fantastic guy. And then, like for raw lifting, because when I started raw lifting, it wasn't no raw lifting. He was kind of one
Yeah,
of the pioneers, wasn't he? The one that
yeah,
went against the grain and didn't want to put all the equipment on.
yeah.
And he helped out, and then was what it was. And I think if the guy that handed out for me, we were competing on like back to back sort of thing. I was handing out, he was handing out, competing, and he ended up having a really horrible tear straight after. I was coaching him as well, and he had a horrible tear, and pretty much everything on the right side of his body detached, or left side of his body just detached. Long, like big surgery and everything. And it got him. I'm not making excuses, but I mean the way the 275 moved, 280 in my, I hate predicting it, but I feel 280 was there, and it definitely was a shocker. And I went for the 280, but it just didn't happen.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, there was more controversy than I would have liked. But
Yeah.
there you
Yeah.
go.
So let's deal with the elephant in the room. You stopped lifting to that level,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
and one thing that we've not touched upon yet is the drug use side of your competitive history. And for those that don't know, you've not exactly had an easy ride with health
No.
side of things. Talk to me about it, Josh, because I think people need to hear it.
Yeah, this is the thing. Um, People aren't open about it, and it's not the reason people get hurt. But genuinely, if people were less ashamed of drug use and more willing to talk about the consequences of drug use in general, even especially to extremes, then I think people would think, twice.
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't use them. I'm just saying listen to what I've got to say. So, I was completely obsessed, and I was doing everything I was doing in training, and I was just taking too much. I'm not going to go into what I was taking and things like that. I was taking too much. I mean, um, I dabbled with a few different things. I'll say the horrible T word, tren, was something I used not at my strongest. I will say that I wasn't at my strongest when I used that, but it just turned me into someone that I don't ever want to see again.
Hmm.
I was a real mess, and you don't realise if we talk like in terms of your family, that the damage that it does to your family, and all you do is you're sitting there and you think, why is everyone being a cunt to me? Why is everyone being a fucker? Why are they all being so horrible to me? And you don't realise it's you. You don't realise how bloody awful you can be, especially when you're doing silly doses, because while it affects your health, it affects everyone else's as well. It affects their mental health. It affects stress levels. It affects kids. It affects families. Like anyway, so moving away from that side of things, if it, being completely selfish, but like about how it affected me. Shortly after the last Irish Pro I did, which I believe was 2019, 2018. Can't remember. I got a belt somewhere with it on it. I was heavy. I was weighing in about 147 or 149. And I
Yeah.
just thought, and I kept thinking, all I need to do is put weight on to get this 280. And I sort of locked the 280 out there, and they didn't allow it because they said it wasn't clean, whatever. It wasn't a clean press. Considered arguing it, but I just thought, no, again, if I'm going to get a record, it's going to be a record, and it's not going to be because I've complained about their refereeing, so I just left it. I was flying, and I was so big and so uncomfortable, and got home. I think it was literally the night I got home. My right foot swelled up like a balloon, like an absolute balloon. And then my right hand swelled up like a balloon, just randomly. Didn't know what caused it, but I was cramping up, like unbearably cramping up.
I remember
Mm.
I remember the picture of your right hand.
And I took myself to A&E, and they were very vague, but they said my creatinine levels are very high. and my kidneys were struggling. They didn't give me any readings. They didn't tell me any of that. They may have done, but I was in a, kind of a world of panic. They kept me in overnight, put me on a drip of something, I don't know what, and then sent me home the next day and told me to come back to ambulatory care as an outpatient. I had a chat. They did more blood tests, etc., etc. I was in all day, and basically I was told to, keep my fluids up. My kidneys were struggling, and that was it. And they referred me back to my doctor, and I didn't hear anything really. I didn't really hear anything after that, and all the swelling went down. So I just carried on, and I can't remember what comp. I think it was Tattooed and Strong. Then I went for shortly after that, and I just, I'd gone back on, and I thought in my head it was like, well, if there was something wrong, they would have contacted me. I had bloods done, no one contacted me, so I'm
Yeah.
just going to crack on. It must have just been, a little scare. I've got to be a bit more careful, which I wasn't, to be fair. And I was feeling pretty unwell the day before. I just weighed in. I was feeling pretty unwell, and I thought, I'm going to get myself one of these like vitamin drip things. And they took my blood pressure, and it was 212 over 125.
It's fucking scary.
Yeah. And I said, is that high? Like, they were like, you need to go to hospital. You need to go to hospital. You could have a stroke or a heart attack. And who might discredit, I elected not to do that and compete anyway. But remember, this wasn't a hospital. This was just like a private clinic. They
Yeah.
told me they couldn't do the thing because my blood pressure was too high. So I went and competed, but it was in my head. It was in my head. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified of pushing too hard. I'd already lost the battle. I wasn't
Enough
getting to
doubt.
it. Yeah,
Enough
well,
doubt was there.
yeah. And after that comp, it didn't go well. I'd had two or three cracks at 280, and I thought, do you know what? I don't want to do this. I want to carry on, but I want to drop a load of weight. I thought that's what I need to do. So I started dropping weight, and I think I got down to around 100, back down to about 137 or 8 kilos, and just by myself, just coming off of all the drugs and stuff, and trying to get them. I asked a friend to help me with diet and nutrition, and I remember going out. I woke up one morning, and all I could smell was piss. I thought that bloody cat's pissed. I'm looking around the house looking for the pee, and I'm like, what? I can't find it. I was like, God. Anyway, so took my dog out. I was walking around the block with my dog, and I thought, I can still smell this. What the? And it was like, I got home, and I said, is it on my clothes? She was like, no, it's you. And I called the doctors, and they did a blood test, and 24 hours later, I got a phone call, your kidneys are failing. And I said, oh, okay, like, is it going to get better? And they said, no, your kidneys are failing. Like, they're beyond. They referred me through to the renal unit. They referred me through to the renal unit, and that's where it's been from there. A very, very short, sharp shock. It was being thinking that you're going to get back into lifting at a lighter weight and be more healthy and be stronger for being fitter, to being told you're going to be on dialysis in a few years. You're going to be on dialysis. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. It's happening. And my initial panic was powerlifting. It's gone. And this is where, like, the mental side of it. And I know I'm not the only one. And hopefully other people, they might not be willing to admit it to other people, but I know they'll admit it to themselves. The panic of, I'm nothing without this. I am nothing without this. This is who I am. I don't want to be ordinary. I just don't want to blend into a crowd. I am nothing. I am a nobody without this. It becomes a mask you wear, to hide whatever else is going on in your life. That, it becomes, you don't have to be whoever you are really when it comes to this, because all people see is Josh Cannon with a massive bench press. And it was nice. And then I knew I was losing that. And that was my initial panic. And it took a good few weeks and a lot of tears to get my head around it, as selfish as that sounds, when considering the toll it was going to take on me physically and my family. And then when I did, and then, going to the renal department a lot, then they discovered that also because of, what was going on, I had a left ventricular atrophy. So my heart wasn't so good. And it was like, oh, what have I done? And it's just too much, too many drugs, too much food. People hyper focus on gear and eating. What you need to hyper focus on is everything other than that. Make sure your training's right. Make sure your rest is right. Make sure your diet is good. Doesn't have to be tons. Just make sure it's good. And then make sure the last thing you need to focus. The last thing after absolutely everything. And in front of it also is like family. How are they going to respond? How is this going to affect them on a daily basis? Are you ready for this? Is gear. And I put my hands up fully that I just shoved it all in, trained like a demon, ate like an idiot, and that's what happens. I'm now in a position where I can't really train. I get incredibly tired. I'm having to go to the renal unit every couple of weeks for a blood test, and every time I go there, you have the same panic attack. Is this where it starts? Are they going to have to put a fistula in? Am I going to have a Tessio line put in my neck? Do I need dialysis now? It's training really isn't up there anymore. I mean, I can dabble, but like I'm gonna be on dialysis in the not too distant future. So now's my time to give my kids as much of my time as I can before I'm going to be wired up to a machine keeping me alive until I get a kidney.
Yeah.
And it ain't worth it. It just isn't worth it. And I come to the realization before I even knew about my kidneys, one of the reasons about dropping the weight and stuff, I sat there and when I went in the gym, I felt like a machine. I felt like a weapon. I felt untouchable. I felt so good for 3 hours a week. 3
And then
hours a
the
week, I
struggles
felt
for the
great.
the
And
struggles
the
for the remainder.
rest of the time, I couldn't walk around because my back was hurting. I was so out of breath all the time. I couldn't run around and play with my kid. I couldn't. And in the end, it just become like, who am I?
Yeah.
And
And
then,
for what?
yeah. And then when you stop and then you get told this and it's like, oh, I got out of it too late. But it doesn't have to be like that.
No.
You
No.
can, I'm not going to say do it safely because it's the wrong message, but you can certainly do it a hell of a lot better than that. And I know there's a lot of people that just jab, 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 it's pill, 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 food, 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 food. And it's going to
There
catch
needs
up
to
with
be
you
there needs to be some better education
massively. But
around it.
everyone that's up there with like the influence inside of things, there are a few that talk about it openly, but there's not enough. There just isn't enough.
Yeah.
That's not, I'm not, what's happened to me is entirely my fault. Um, there is an element, I can't go into too much, of medical negligence where my doctors were aware of what was going on, but they just failed to move me forward into the appropriate channels.
Yeah.
But there we go. It is, that's ongoing, so I can't talk about it too much.
So, do you have any regrets?
Massively, yeah. Massively. I don't regret powerlifting. I love it. It gave me so much joy. I met some amazing people. I had a great time. the adrenaline of, breaking a record and knowing that you are the number one in the UK,
Still,
undisputed, yeah, for much longer, undisputed, the number one strongest, even, and I was proud because I had the Wilkes and Schwartz and Glossenbrenner as well. Like, undisputed strongest bench presser in the country was a fantastic thought in the back of my head.
yeah.
Love that, and I'll never forget that. But my regret is the way I did it. I wasn't careful. I was selfish. I could have done it so much better. And you talk about longevity. I mean, I watched Luke's one. He talks about longevity. People just come in, bang, 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 and then they're injured. And hello, that's
Yeah.
me. I am that one. I did that. You know, I am that person, and my life is drastically shortened for it. With the court case ongoing, they've talked about life expectancy. My life expectancy is way below average now, and I've had to come to terms with that. For what? I could have still hit those numbers and more. I could have got so much better if I'd have just looked after myself and respected it a little bit better.
And approached it with, like you say, we approached it with a view of longevity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And is it fair to say that's what you'd do differently if you had your time again?
Absolutely. I mean, with the people I coach, that's how I train them. I have a really, really good and awful gift of hindsight. And I make sure that everything that I would have done to myself, I now do with the people I coach.
Yeah.
I would definitely have gone into it for the long term.
And we've deep dived quite a lot here, Josh, and I've still got some questions.
Yeah, mate.
Outside of this, but what advice would you give to those thinking about steroid use within powerlifting?
Don't read everything. Don't trust everything you read on the internet because you don't know who's writing it. Like there's like you can go on straight away and read all that, like when you open up your new tablets, and it's got all these lists of horrible side effects. You're not going to get them all. You might, but you're not going to get them all. So you can go on there. Don't trust it. Don't trust all the bad of it, and also don't trust when someone's going, you can do this, you can do that, and you can run this, and you can run that. You don't know who's saying it. It could be some 19-year-old gamer from America that's never seen the gym in his life, but he's done a bit of research. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You need to speak to the people that have done it. You need to talk to people that do it, or people that have done it, that do it, people with extensive experience. If you want to, with anything, with drug use, with coaching, I don't think anyone should give advice until they've experienced it for themselves, or at least had a modicum of success or failure.
And there's a
Especially
lot that,
success.
and you're seeing more and more professional advice around that side of powerlifting, and it needs to be more available.
Oh,
It
100%.
can't just be Dave in the back corner of the gym. It's got to be better than that.
And there's more and more people as well that are making this, people buying this stuff online and making their own. Here, take this, take that. I remember I bought some once and I took it and my whole body came up in like an awful, horrible rash.
Yeah.
And I'm a celiac, the gluten and wheat allergy.
Mm.
And I think that the carrier oil they used was wheat based. And I just shoved that in. I didn't even ask, but God, did I pay the price for weeks after? Like, it was awful. And then this is the thing, people just, it's so, the equipment to make it, the raw materials are so readily available. So anybody can bloody do it. And you've got to remember, like, I will put my hand up. I was never one of these people that went for the cheapest thing they could buy. I didn't do that. I got what I could see was the best. But it shocks me. People are going, oh, well, I can get it cheaper as well. I was like, you are literally injecting this into your body and you're trying to go cheap. Are you mad? You know,
There's just
like,
got to be better education around the whole subject. There just has to be a better education around it. Where
yeah,
we are talking about people's lives at the end of the day.
yeah, massively. And I am, I'm here, like, I'm not one to go, never use steroids, blah, 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 because let's face it, if you've already thought about it, you're going to do it. If someone's got it in their head, I wonder if blah, 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 they're going to do it. The seed is sowed, like, they are going to do it. And that's where people, they need to get the help and the right, and make sure they do things like get their bloods done, get their blood pressure checked, do everything around it. Are you getting stronger? Yes. Do you need to put up the dose? No. Like, am I getting stronger? Yes. Well, I could be stronger if I took more. So I took more. And it's like a house fire. It only happens to other people, but it certainly doesn't. It will catch up if you are not
Yeah,
careful and
yeah.
know when to step away as well.
I think that's the important point. It's a very important point. So, look, I appreciate your honesty,
Hmm.
and I hope those watching understand the reason why we've discussed so openly around what we've discussed. I think it's an integral. It's not an area of the sport that's going to go away. So let's deal.
No.
Let's have a conversation about it, and let's it's got to be openly discussed. What does life look like now, and what does life look like outside of powerlifting? It's been a while since you've been in the sport, so
Yeah.
life must have moved on.
Well, I've still got like, I enjoy helping people very, very much. I've coached a few people. Someone I'm coaching now's sort of coming up quite nicely. Um, and just spending time as a dad, really. Like,
Mm,
I go to, I do the gym thing, like helping people do that, coaching. Um, sorry to say I'm not working at the minute. I can't, I'm in hospital constantly, like this test and that test and this test and that test. Around, you've got the kidney failure, the heart failure. I've also had a transplant in my right eye. I have my right eye cornea transplanted. So there's those things I have to go to. Um, so amongst all of that, all I try and do is just be as present as I can be. You know, I don't always get it right. I don't always get it right. But just trying to give little one more more of me that she never used to get. Fortunately, she was very, very young back in the days when I was
yeah,
competing, but my oldest two weren't. Um, and other than that, really, I actually was considering. I wouldn't even know where to start. I wouldn't know where to start. I'd like to get more into coaching, programming. Um, I really, really thoroughly enjoy that. I'm just awful for even technologically, like using like apps and things like that. I've got no idea. And I'd really like to write a ebook on
yeah,
my bench press methods, my training methods, because they were so dissimilar from everyone else's. And I figured there must be something to it. What's the worst can happen? No one's interested. But I still think it'd be fun to do.
yeah,
I'm certainly a lot happier. Well, obviously, I've got this dialysis thing looming over me, which is like a dark shadow that I'm trying to run away from. But that not having to worry about gym sessions and things like that is a massive relief. Because
yeah.
in the end, it wasn't fun. Training wasn't fun. It became like I have to do this. You know, I obsessed over it, and
You
it
knew
took
where
the
you
fun
wanted
out.
to get to, but you wasn't
Yeah,
enjoying the journey.
no, I wasn't at all. It was just too much. It was too much, and now I'm
Yeah,
so much more relaxed. I'm so much more
yeah,
chilled out for it.
yeah. Good, good. Just going to ask a couple of more fun questions, Josh.
Yeah, man.
So, favorite lift out of the three? I think it's
Oh,
fair to say what that's going to be.
bench. Yeah.
What about
To be
favorite
honest,
gym
I'll tell
lift?
you what. I actually enjoy squatting more. I
Yeah,
think I enjoyed squatting more, although I wasn't great at it. But I came into my own on the bench.
yeah. What about favorite gym lift? Pick any lift that you can do outside of the squat, bench, and deadlift. What would it be?
Banded pushdowns.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just. They're the greatest humbler ever. If you've never done banded pushdowns, double the bands over and do some pushdowns, and then you'll see how strong your triceps are.
favorite body part to train?
Mm, probably arms or shoulders.
Always good for looking good in a
Yeah,
t-shirt or a
yeah.
vest top.
Or my mouth when I go in the gym when I don't actually do anything. To be honest,
There's always that. And there's always that. I think we know
my my gy- my gym
know a few
sessions are,
lifters like that.
mate. My gym sessions are very much. I go, not that I even really go anymore, but like I go if I'm not feeling well enough or up to it, then I don't train. It's as simple as
Hmm.
that. More often than not.
Yeah. Your biggest weakness?
Physically or just in
Just
general.
generally, just in general.
Myself, just uh,
Your biggest
I am.
strength?
Oh, see, there's my weakness because I can't think of any strengths. Honestly, without being too self-congratulatory, I just really like helping people.
Hmm.
I like helping people, and I've got time for anyone that will give me their time.
Yeah, yeah. Those that know you know you're a cracking guy. You're an absolute softie. You know the tattoos. I think you've said to me previously that you probably won't mind me saying this, but your tattoos are kind of your armor.
Yeah, and when you're on a train or something, no one wants to sit next to you, which is nice.
So you always get space.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. Is there anything else you'd like to say? You know, it's been in one sense it's been good to hear your story, but at the same time it's not easy stuff to talk about.
Do you know what? I've had so much with like solicitors and court cases and doctors that I'm kind of hardened to it now.
Yeah,
I'm hardened to talking about what's happened because I've got over I'm in the acceptance stage. It's happening,
yeah,
but it's not happening at this minute. So I kind of live every day, you know, like tomorrow could be the day that I'm strapped onto a machine, and I'm okay with that now. I'm okay. You know, I think it's important to say that the steroid abuse had a massive part to play in it, but it was actually the high blood pressure that destroyed my kidneys and heart, so it was indirectly use of the steroids, but it had a massive part to play in it. So people need to check your blood pressure all the time, once a day. It's not going to hurt if you've got your own machine. Get it checked, you know. But just because I had a bad run doesn't mean everyone else has to. But just if people can learn from what's happened to me, then hopefully less people will go through it, and it will progress the sport better as well. Because crappy, shitty stories like mine is what gives it a bad name, which is why I've kind of just stepped away from it and not made a point about what's happened to me, because it ain't powerlifting's fault, it's mine.
yeah,
It's my fault. This has all happened. So, but I had a great time, and I think I'm going to look forward to seeing Luke Tolman take my record. Like he is a realist. That 7.5 kilos he's got to go. It's not something that happens in 6 months, a year. It takes time. It takes time to eat every kilo when you're at that echelon of what your max is. And hope to God he beats it by at least 2.5 kilos because I'm not standing it. I'm going to, 275.5. Oh,
He's gonna.
4 off. You may have to put a
He's
couple of
already
Bourbon
said.
creams on the end.
He's already said it's 2.5 kilo or nothing.
Yeah, I think that's the unwritten rule because let's half a kilo. Come on, like
You can't chip it. You
no,
can't
but
chip it.
that to see how close he got, that guy's a phenom. He is incredible, and and a properly stand up guy. And records are meant to be broken. They are absolutely meant to be broken. That's what they're there for. And best of luck to him. It has stood the test of time, and it's still nice to see my name at the top of the list. But it ain't going to be forever, and I'm certainly ready for someone else to take it now. He's and what a cracking guy as well. So best of luck to him. I truly hope he takes it. I really do.
We've already said we'll get him back when he does.
Good. He's definitely deserving of it.
Yeah. Any other messages you want to put out there, Josh?
No, I'm all good, mate. I think I've really enjoyed doing this. I'm really grateful for you having me on. I was a bit nervous. I think, well, I am a has-been, but I think what I've got to say, people need to listen to.
Yeah, agreed. Look, I can't thank you enough for your time, Josh. It's been absolutely
Anything, mate.
fantastic to
Anything for
have
you
you on.
guys.
And like I say, really appreciate you being open, honest, and telling us your story. I will make sure I'll get your details in the link within the video, and people can check you out. But I'll also make sure that your content and your videos and things that we've been discussing get out there so that people can see just how much of an animal you're and how great your lifts were. It's been great being part of your journey, mate. It really
I've
has.
been very grateful for all your help and your friendship, mate, as well. It means a lot to me. It does. It's never been forgotten.
Likewise. Right, guys, there we have it. That's Josh's story. It's been a heavy episode, but hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we'll keep tabs of Josh and his progress going forward. And hopefully you've liked this one. If you do, give it a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Catch you later.